My name is Naama, and I will be talking about sparking joy with Agile. So, still not working? Working, great. So, a little bit about me. I always have my family in my presentations here, apparently. So, I've been an Agile coach for about 11 years. And I've been working with all kinds of organizations, small, big, startups, big companies. And I'm also a mother of 3, very nice kids. You can see them in the picture. And I'm also an NLP master practitioner, the neuro-linguistic programming NLP part. And what I want to share with you today is my journey with actually tidying up my house. And what does that has to do with Agile, and what does sparking joy has to do with Agile. So one day I got this quote on one of my Slack channels, and I didn't get it. Okay. Does anyone here know who Marie Kondo is? Great. Have anyone, keep your hands up. From those who know who Marie Kondo is, did you try doing KonMari? Okay. Did you actually succeed? Good job. I want to talk to you later. Okay. Okay, so most of us know what Jira is, but at the time I didn't know who Marie Kondo was, and I didn't know what was this, thank it and then discard it. I really had to find out, okay? So I did some exploring, and I did some research, and then we were about to move to a new house. Now, you need to understand, I have 3 small kids, as you saw, and they look really nice on the pictures, but, you know, the house is a mess. It's a war zone, okay? And we're about to move into a new home that actually is bigger. So I was like, oh God, more stuff, more room, and I really, really need to get that in order. And so when I went through her videos and her Netflix show and whatever, I saw that and said, oh, this is so for me. So for those of you who don't know Marie Kondo, so Marie Kondo is a nice lady from Japan, and she is a tidying up expert. Actually, she's been mastering that throughout her life ever since she was like a teenage. And what she loves most is mess. She says that on her show so many times. And she wrote several books. One of them is Sparking Joy. And she also has a Netflix show called Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. Very much recommended. From the anthropological point of view, it's interesting and fascinating. Actually, she really did her work in an empirical way. So if you read her books, she really describes how she moved through different experimentation of tidying up and all kinds of how to store stuff that actually perfected into her method, which she calls KonMari, which is like a combination of her name. So when I saw that and I read that, I was like, oh my God, like it hit me. Like what Marie Kondo does for tidying up, I do for organizations. How cool is that? So if I will do tidying up as well as I do Agile, that will really improve my life. And, well, partially succeeded. You will learn later. But there are a lot of similarities. And when I thought about coming and talking here, I said, okay, you know what? We're like in a really, really intensive time in our life. We moved like, I think 6 weeks ago. The house is still under renovation. I don't have a kitchen. I have 3 kids, and most of the move was actually during the summer vacation. So I tried doing a lot of things throughout the time. And I said, okay, let's see how I can use that to actually educate other people in how are the principles working for us. So let's first review, for those who don't know KonMari. KonMari method has 6 basic rules. Of course, it's not everything that there is in the KonMari method, same as Agile, but there are 6 basic rules. The first one is commit yourself for tidying up. I mean, if you're not up to the job, then if you're not fully committed, it will not succeed. Imagine your ideal lifestyle. Finish discarding first. Tidy by category, not by location, which is where this method actually differs from other tidying up experts. Follow the right order. And ask yourself if it sparks joy. Okay, so this is an Agile conference. I do understand that. So we will actually go through what that means in the Agile world. So the first one is about commitment. What you see here is Wendy Akiyama. She's one of the in one of the episodes in the Netflix show. She and her husband Ron called in Marie Kondo to help them tidying up. Their kids left the house, and they have like a house full of stuff, like seriously full of stuff. And I think this episode is one of the most obvious in the before and after patterns. But the thing I like about this, what you can see around her is like all of her clothes, but actually it's not all of her clothes. There are like 2 other rooms where they're all of her clothes. And she's really committed, right? She called her in. She's like, yeah, I really need to get my stuff organized. And her husband, Ron, he's kind of absent because he sits there most of the time when he gets on time, because in most of the beginning of the episode, he's actually late to the meetings with Marie Kondo. And then he sits there, and most of what he says is like, I'm here because she said I should be here, okay? And, well, you see she has a lot of work to do on her clothes, but one of the things about commitment is that this is actually their bedroom, and what you see there is piles of baseball cards that he collects, okay? So if she wants something to change, she actually needs him to commit to doing that change. Now, when I look at commitment in organizations, I see that in many cases, as an Agile coach, I'm called in by management. I'm not called in by a team that says, you know what, we want to be more Agile, can you bring someone to support us, right? And in many cases, when you have that situation, there are always people that are not on board. I mean, Angel mentioned before laggards, right? So you need to understand that there is a difference between an organizational commitment and a personal commitment. Because a personal commitment is something you decide you want to change and you want to do. And of course, KonMari is very personal commitment. But as myself, I have 3 kids. They are not committed to this process. I am. So I need to get them on board. Same in organizations, right? We need to get the people on board. We need to make sure they understand what's in it for them and to see they are willing to change. Well, we're not changing them. We're changing the process and the environment to allow their behaviors to change. The second part is that in the organizational, the organizational commitment is that a lot of times when management calls us in for commitment, for driving Agile transformation or whatever, they are not always fully commit. Sometimes they call us in to fix the development process. Ever heard that? But actually they need to invest. They need to invest time in budget, and they need to invest people's time in education and coming to such conferences as this, and so on. So we have several levels of commitment. The second rule is about envisioning your future lifestyle, what we call vision. At one point in time, I was so tired. I mean, physically, mentally, I had so many things to do. I was so out of my comfort zone. I mean, my comfort zone was like, I didn't even see it, okay? I had 3 kids on my head, and I had to organize everything, and I cracked. I mean, my house was like, my mind was like a train station, and I was a train wreck. And I talked to a friend of mine, and she told me, remember what you're doing that for. Why are you doing this move? Why did you want it? Why did you want this house? Look around you, sit in your backyard now and look at what you have and remember what you're doing this for. And I think that and for me it really helped, right? Because for a moment, the noise was still there, but it was more manageable. I was able to prioritize. I was able to see what I really want and why I'm doing that. And I think that we need to remember that we need to use vision for our companies, for our products, for ourselves. When was the last time you actually sat around and envisioned what would success look like? What it would feel like? What it will sound like? Finish discarding first. In Agile, we say stop starting, start finishing. What you see here is out of a blog by a traffic reporter called Angela Knight from CBC. And she tried to do the KonMari on her desk at work. Well, she did several mistakes around here, but the main one was that when you do discarding, you need to hold on to the specific thing you are actually thinking of discarding and see if it sparks joy. If not, you need to discard it. Think it and then discard it. And the thing is that too many things have sparked joy for her, so she didn't discard from almost anything. And the problem with that is inventory has a cost. So what you see here is that the inventory here is not much reduced, and therefore there is not much order. Now, it could be your closet. It could be the game room where all the games that they are sitting there and nobody uses them because there is so plenty. And it could be your backlog. It could be your processes. Okay, we have inventory. And the problem with inventory is that you actually pay hidden costs for it, right? So who here has over 50 backlog items in their backlog? Over 100? Over 500? Okay, how are you able to prioritize that, right? How do you know which one is more important than the other one? Okay, so yeah, you should have some, but still. Another thing about that, and here I will do a short demonstration, is that my dear husband, by the way, he's over there, very embarrassing. We're actually, it's our 14th wedding anniversary today. Yeah. So when I started working my way through the KonMari, I kind of decided to start folding the KonMari way, which I will shortly demonstrate. And since we are sharing the laundry duties, 5 people in the home, we do a lot of laundry. I started folding things the other way, and also I started organizing the kids' closets in another way. And he's the organized person in the house. However, I do a lot of organizing. I don't know why. And this is like, there are 3 shirts here, and this is like the way his closet looked like before. But now when we fold in the KonMari way, right, so it looks a bit different because Marie Kondo, she likes to put things horizontally. So this is very stressful. I hope I will succeed. Okay, so actually you're moving from piling your clothes into, this is very, I kind of didn't plan on doing that, but since I got 10 minutes extra, I said, okay, I'll do that. I'm not sure it was a good idea, but you'll bear with me. Okay, yeah, definitely imposter syndrome. Okay, so you kind of need to pile your stuff like that. And she recommends not to use shelves, but rather drawers. And we didn't have much drawers, we had mainly shelves, but if you have less shirts, actually it can work. But the thing is that my husband, my dearest husband, Asi, he didn't do the discarding first because he really uses all of his shirts, and he also showed me the data for it. But he did. But so he started folding his shirts like this also, right? But the problem is that if this is like his shelf area, he had like piles this high, 3 of them, right? And now he started folding like that. But eventually it was like, okay, I don't have enough room, so he started piling them up like this. And the reason that Marie Kondo says you should do that is because when you look at your drawer, well, all these shirts are black, but actually you can set them apart, and then you can visualize what you actually have and decide easier to choose. But when you have it piled like that, it doesn't add value, right? So you need to discard stuff before you actually change something. And I will give an example which is actually really relates to what Andrea was talking about before, about I don't remember the exact word, but overcomplicating, yes, thank you, stuff. So I have one client that they have like a tendency to add stuff to their process. So whenever something is missing, okay, let's add another step in our process. And I'm like, no more process steps. You need to reduce process steps, right? So they had like a really big status meeting that was 1 hour every week, and they had to send a weekly report to the management out in another country. And then I said, you know what? How about you do a Kanban meeting? Like we will make a Kanban board, which is just like the main epics that you're working on and their main statuses, and then you can like review it in 15 minutes, and then it will be built in the way that the report can be generated out of it. I'm like, okay, we'll try that. And we saved tons of time, right? Because we took out some processes, and it's just 15 minutes to the same people, and instead of 1 hour per project. And the amazing thing was also that actually the responsibility for the report was moved into the team and not the PMO, which previously had to run after everybody and get the status. So now it's the team status, and the PMO is just like pulling it during that 15 minutes talk. So that was really cool. The next one is tidy by category, not location. I like to call it done is done. So when you work under KonMari, you start with the clothing, then the books, and then the papers. And the reason you do that is that once you're done with all your clothes, you're actually done. And you start buying less, right? So you don't accumulate additional stuff. So personally, I just got pretty much to the books part. I still have work there. I mean, I took out a lot of books, but I haven't gotten to the papers yet. Don't get me started about the sentimentals, right? Good thing we have an attic in our new home, so everything like went up. But for me, just removing clothes from my cupboard was good enough. Okay, it gave me a lot of peace, and I have less stuff. I did the Komono thing, which is like all the miscellaneous. So I have less stuff, right? And the same goes for our teams, okay? If you work on a backlog, make sure you can finish it, and once you finished it, you're done with it. And a lot of time people ask me about categories and what I need from how do you build an epic? Is it a flow epic? Is it a feature area? And most of the time I say, I don't care, as long as you're consistent about it. So if you take a category for an epic or whatever, make sure you review everything in it. For example, not only the features, but also the bugs and the ideas around it. And then you look at it and you find out what sparks joy in it, what adds value in it. And if it doesn't, and you're not gonna get to it really soon, delete it. All these features that are like on our wish list, one day we're gonna get some time and do it, they never happen, okay? And for that I say, when you're done, you're done. Just go by category and not by location. And yeah, I think that's it. Another part is follow the right order. In Agile, in many times we say it's a philosophy, you need to understand the principles and so on. But too often I see organizations that they say, okay, we're already running Scrum for a while, so we're gonna start removing stuff. But you ask them questions and you understand that they're not being Agile, they're just doing Agile, right? So there are no shortcuts. And for here, Marie Kondo has like this specific order to go from clothes to books to papers to Komono and then sentimentals. If you will try to do the sentimentals first, you will be blocked because there is emotional relationship with our stuff. And the reason this is ordered that way, because it's much easier to say thank you and discard a shirt you've been wearing for the past 5 years, right? And once you get to sentimentals, you're already practicing the sparking joy feeling. And once you already know what does spark joy in your life, it's really easier to say goodbye to sentimental things, that little thing you've been holding on for many years. Same goes for Agile. You need to understand the principles. I always start with an Agile workshop, talking about the Agile manifesto, what are the principles and values. And then usually I go through Scrum because it's easier to introduce. And only after we practice that for a while, then we start questioning. what are the changes we want to make. And that is only based on our understanding of the why and the what before we go to the how. Okay, so I had some teams that said, okay, you know what, we don't want to do the full-blown Scrum thing. We want to do just partially. And sometimes they had to learn the hard way, but I think that creates also some misconceptions when you talk to people and then they don't understand what Agile is. Because they think it's just, okay, Agile is working in sprints, right? Yeah, well, sprints is just like the how we do that. Most Agilists, they don't care about the time box in specific. The time box serves something. Ask yourself if it sparks joy. So, when you sparking joy for me is like about adding value. When I talk about organizations that are coming to do Agile, I want to make them a happy place for people to work in. And when you see people going into the routines of the Scrum, for example, for the planning and daily and whatever, and they're like, okay, if the people are down, before you try to change anything that is process-wise, just try to understand why. Try adding this question to your retrospective. What does spark joy in your work life? What makes you happy? What does not? Is Jira not sparking joy for you? Okay, understand why, because there are some elements that it does serve. Now remember, in many cases, since we work in very changing environments, we need to understand that part of the agility is that we change all the time. And in NLP we say that in many cases, the current behavior used to serve something back then. Same goes for processes. Maybe you have your daily at 10:30, right? Because it made sense. But ever since then, the team changed, and everybody's coming to the office around 9. And it doesn't make sense to stop after 1 hour of work to do the daily. So move it. But you need to first understand what changed and to see how you can adapt your behaviors and your ceremonies and your processes according to what you currently need. And that will help you spark joy, because we want to have people happy, because happy people means good products. And that's a really important thing to remember. This is like just a couple of examples of what you can find if you do a search on a KonMari hashtag on Pinterest or Instagram or whatever. I have nothing specific to say about these specific examples, but just beware of the shortcuts. I mean, people like me telling you 10 tips to boost your effectiveness or hacking cloud culture or whatever. Yeah, I did that, but always with the intention to look at the basics, principles. Don't just copy paste, okay? If you're just looking for a way to fold shirts better, great. But if you don't understand the layering and what it requires from the environment to support that, it would not hold, okay? And that just makes people frustrated. If I would go throughout all this printable kit, right? And I will just do the printable kit, I will get frustrated because I will not pass page number 5. I have too much on my mind. So I need to see what is right for me. Same you need to do for your organizations. What is right for your organizations? Where are you standing now? What is your current stage? It's like in one of the previous, in the Bossa Nova lecture. But you need to understand where you are, what works for you. So, the big question, is my house tidy now? No. It's better, but I'm not there yet. I did learn what sparks joy for me. And I also had the privilege to understand what sparks joy to my children, for my children, because I had to ask them, because I realized I cannot make decisions for them. And I buy less, and I think about what actually sparks joy for me. That's just my time timer. Okay. And I still have a long way to go. I still have a long way to go in getting my family's commitment. I have to share my vision better so my family can understand better what I want to achieve. And I still have a lot of things to go through because at the end of the packing, I was like, oh, let's just put them and I will take care of it when we unpack. And we haven't unpacked all of it yet. But I did learn a lot in the process. So sparking joy with Agile is, first of all, we want to have things that we do to matter and add value. It doesn't matter if it's a backlog item, if it's another meeting, if it's a discussion we have with our friends, right? And you always need to remember that vision and commitment are key. If you don't have these, then you most probably will just end up with a checklist. And that's very important. And I'm really happy to have this talk here on this specific stage because I think that most of the talks we saw today talked a lot about culture. And at the end of the day, we want to be happy ourselves and then also to have happy organizations. So that's it for me, and thank you.